for two. Kickers are extra, I give them the boot. Ooh, going for two. Sit back, relax while I grab me a brew. Ooh, now I'm reclining while putting my time and I'm ready to go. My spine is aligning and much my lineups, my bank account grow. I am so rich, but knowledge is all that I'm leaving it with. Ooh, listen to this. Multiple options, how far can I get? Ooh, DFS Dynasty redraft tonight, I'm not finishing last. I'm finishing past any and all, I am looking to last. What else? This spot is popping and I am so locked in and only opening the door when it is opportunity knocking. And all of these spots keep on talking and talking. So what are we talking? What kind of alignment? And running it deep, even players forgotten or came from the bottom or hitting that top end. And this spot is popping, yeah, this spot is popping. And woo! This is the armchair, yeah. Put up your arms, yeah. Sound the alarm, yeah, yeah, yeah. Woo! This is the armchair, yeah. Put up your arms, yeah. Sound the alarm, yeah, yeah, yeah. Woo!
What is going on? And welcome to episode 215 of the Armchair Fantasy Show. I'm your host, of course, Jeff Lambert. You can follow me on Twitter at JeffLambert77. We are here, as always, as part of the Going for Two network. You can follow them on Twitter at Going for Two Live. We are on Facebook Live, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube, syndicated on all major podcast networks and streaming in the Going for Two app for iOS and Android. I'm here, as always, with my co-host, Mr. Ryan Searfoss. You can follow him on Twitter at Foss534. What's up, Ryan? You're on mute, Ryan.
All right. Super professional, mate. Awesome. Glad to be back from missing last week. Obviously, rusty from not having that on, but glad to be back.
Yes, sir. Good stuff. And as y'all can see, I'm actually live right now from the Outer Banks.
Humble brag.
Humble brag. Not in my usual studio here, but we're going to make this work. Also joining us tonight, he's our Going for Two's injury analysis guy. You could watch him on Thursday nights on the Dynasty Gambit. And then coming up this season, he'll be moving to the Monday night 2-point conversion show where he'll do some injury analysis on the Monday night show. Mr. James Ferretti, you can follow him at TFS Doc. What's up, James?
Hey guys, how are you? It's good to be here. I mean, this really feels like Christmas in August for me. Like, not only is it my first time getting to be on the podcast with you and Ryan, but I also get to appear with the next person you're going to introduce, Stephania Bell, who's one of the people that I followed for years, somebody whose work I really respect, and is one of the people who's inspired me to not only become an injury analyst, but to write a book on it as well. And here is that book. Injuries suck, but your fantasy team doesn't have to. That's just a little teaser for now. We'll talk about it later. But let me just say how excited I am to be here with all you guys.
All right. Glad to have you on the show. Finally got you on the show. I know we've been talking about it for a couple months now to get you on. And then also joining us, she needs no introduction, Miss Stephania Bell, of course, senior writer, injury analyst for ESPN. She's the co-host of the Fantasy Focus podcast and the woman behind the Project 11 Alex Smith documentary. Follow her on Twitter at Stephania_ESPN. Stephania, how are you?
I'm good. You guys are well aware that I've had a day of travel. It's training up tour time, which I hesitate to ever sound like I'm complaining ever because of the fact I work in sports and I talk about football every day for the next at least 6 months. So this is not a complaint. It's just a statement of fact that when one is traveling to smaller hubs in the summer when there are thunderstorms, it can be tricky. So I've had a day like that, but it's great actually to be back out at training camps because we didn't get to do it last year.
Right.
So everybody feels a little funny that people like giddy outside, not the players because they have to actually do work. But right. I think for those of us who are seeing each other on the road, we're like, hey, how's it been? It's been 2 years, So this is exciting for me to be out there and kind of get to see things with my own eyes. I don't think there's anything better than that. And I'm just happy to be talking about it. And I really appreciate you guys not only inviting me to join you, but being patient with me today when I didn't know what city I was going to end up in. So
Definitely. We're glad to have you on the show. Just real quick, Jim, we'll go to you first. Just kind of, give us, the listeners, a little bit about yourself, what you do for us. Plug your book again if you like.
Sure. So as you said, in addition to working and doing injury analysis at Going for Two, I am a full-time licensed and board certified practicing doctor. I work as a radiologist. I've been doing that for almost 10 years now. So I read all different types of medical imaging, x-rays, CAT scans, ultrasounds, and my subspecialty actually is in MRI. I did that for a whole year in Boston, read nothing but MRIs, the exact type of imaging that professional athletes get all the time. So that's really what my passion is trying to educate fantasy football players on how to get a lot better at injury analysis, kind of read between the lines of media reports, coach speak, and things like that, and give some descriptions of injuries and stuff that's really useful and actionable for fantasy football players. So that was the genesis of the book, which I will plug again at the end. So that'll be the treat for people that stay and watch the whole show. But yeah, that's me, and really happy to be with Going for Two. Really happy to be here. Just super excited.
Awesome, good stuff. And Stephania, for those few people out there that don't know who you are, kind of give them an idea of what you do in the business.
I'm just laughing because James said I watched her for years. I was like, easy, James.
No. That's more of a representation of me. Don't let the baby face fool you. I've been around for quite a while.
No, it's quite all right. I mean, look, I was doing a show earlier, and they were asking me about like who are some of my favorite players that I used to watch, and I realized when I started saying the names, I was like, do you guys who are listening even know who they are?
We are going to be very aligned on
you
this.
remember them? But anyway, to answer your question, Jeff, for people who don't know, I was a practicing physical therapist in sports medicine for 20 years before I really transitioned to media full time. And I dabbled in a little bit of injury analysis and other formats, mostly writing and some radio with the first outfits who brought me on. Really, RotoWire is to be credited because those guys took a chance. And if they hadn't given me a magazine to write for, as well as online, and put me on Sirius XM radio, then I wouldn't have had the opportunity to go to ESPN. And when Matthew Berry got hired and was building out the fantasy department, he and I had met at a couple of FSTA meetings. That's now Fantasy Sports Gaming Association. So FSGA used to be Fantasy Sports Trade Association. And, Matthew, I will always appreciate Matthew for bringing me in. He thought, there weren't many women playing fantasy football. I'd love to see the growth in the number of women that are playing now compared to when I got into the business. I was literally like a lone voice at those meetings. But also that I had this different angle that I was looking at injury information, because it really evolved from guys I played with asking me questions about injuries all the time, and wanting to know a little bit more about the nuance of the injuries and what it meant for a player, and could they come back, could they be the same? And when I realized how many people were interested in that kind of information, it made me think, I must be able to do something with this, because I loved it. I was used to educating my patients. You feel like you're talking about the same things over and over. And it's like, well, here's people who actually have a vested interest in this. And it was funny because when I first started talking to people who were in this line of work through the FSTA, there was a lot of like, oh, okay, that's kind of cool and different, but nobody's going to pay you to do that. And I thought, well, they pay for your content. So if we're brokering content, then why wouldn't they? Because everybody wants an edge. And luckily, I'm not easily dissuaded from most things. So I kind of stuck with it and got a good response. And ESPN took a chance, for which I'm eternally grateful. And now it's my 14th year. And I always felt like it would evolve beyond fantasy. I mean, we're here talking fantasy. Fantasy is like my home at ESPN. It's sort of where I live, is with the fantasy and gaming group. And I forever, and that's my heart is always with them. But as you mentioned, the Alex Smith project, like that, the storytelling that's part of what got me into this, really, was sharing stories and just having this wealth of stories from athletes who were patients of mine to draw from in my own experience. It was the stories that always got me as a PT. And so I wanted to bring that to ESPN, and I was fortunate enough to get into start doing features and pieces. And so that's some of my, those are some of my favorite side projects, or when I get to dive a little deeper. And the Alex Smith piece, that was 2 years of work. So you have to be patient too, but anybody who's worked in rehab knows that that's the name of the game. Yep.
That's awesome. That's a great story. That Alex Smith documentary was huge. I live in Washington, D.C., so a lot of Alex Smith fans live in Washington, D.C. So I got the chance to see them react to it, and everything that happened with that documentary was pretty cool. So definitely appreciate what you do in the community. All right. Well, we got a lot to get to tonight. I do have some news and notes. I don't have my usual drops tonight, so we're just going to go with news and notes is brought to you by Dynasty Trade Calculator. Everybody hates bad trade offers, right? No one wants to be that guy. Never make a bad trade offer again with the Dynasty Trade Calculator. You just visit goingfor2.com/DTC and sign up for $15 a year. That's right. Just visit goingfor2.com/DTC, and for $15 a year, you can get the best trade calculator on the market. Stop guessing, start calculating. All right, so we got a couple news and notes that we'll hit on here really quickly, and then we will get into the division previews. And the first one that I kind of popped up just recently was the NFL is allowing an unlimited number of players to return from IR, and they're allowed to return with a 3-game period, and they must be on the initial 53-man roster to be qualified for that. Stephania, I'm going to go to you first on the impact of what this could have on not just the NFL, but on the fantasy football game in general, with guys being able to put on IR and taking off IR unlimited amounts.
Yeah, I think this is just an extension of what they did last year in response to COVID, and it makes sense. I mean, they're allowing for roster flexibility for teams, and that's important because if you look at what the NFL is trying to do, and they've been very clear about it, it's a longer season, right? With 17 games this year, and they're really looking to play all 17 games without schedule adjustments. That's the number one goal. And so everything to that end to allow the flexibility to be able to make moves if they have to. Obviously, the COVID is sort of driving this, but the rules are different this year. And teams are going to have to, if there's an outbreak that is related to an unvaccinated player, any expenses associated with the forfeiture of a game fall back to the club. And that's a lot of money, and nobody wants it. And the guys don't get paid when they don't play. So really the motivator at the end of the day is financial. And obviously, I think everyone, it sounds a little bit cynical. I mean, they want the best interest of the health of everyone. That's staff included. That's why vaccination has been such a big push. But the bottom line across the business is financial. And so the roster flexibility allows for the possibility, that there's nothing is for certain with this pandemic. We've seen that. We've seen evolution and variants that are driving things differently in the world around us as we go. So I think they're trying to do the best that they can proactively, try and help ensure that we get through 17 weeks uninterrupted.
So let me ask you this real quick, because you're kind of tapped into the NFL. Let's say a year from now, 2 years from now, COVID's no longer a thing. Do you think this rule stays in place in the future?
It's interesting because first you have to believe that COVID won't be a thing. And I actually don't think that. I think that we're going to be dealing with COVID for years to come, hopefully not to the same degree. And so it becomes, how things are, the longer something's in place, the harder it is to take it away. And so I think if it was just this year and then done, maybe not, but I have a feeling this flexibility or something like it could stick around. And it makes sense, to be honest, because they really want to put, again, I'm going to go back to financial, but you want to put the best product forward. And so if a team is really struggling or they have a player who could have come back at a certain time, but just because of this arbitrary timeline or arbitrary rule about how many can move up and down off IR, that player can't come back. It's not the best product on the field. And ultimately, they want that.
Yep, definitely. Ryan, let me go to you on how this might impact dynasty leagues, and are we expanding our IR slots, or how are we handling this in our dynasty leagues, you think?
I mean, I think we're at the point now for dynasty leagues where you have to expand the IR spot, especially if you're in leagues with smaller rosters. Like I'm in leagues where we have huge rosters, a little bit different. But yeah, I think you have to do it. Maybe not to that extent because that churn and burn, people are just going to be holding on to players. But I think you can definitely expand it a bit. But it's one of those things, I'm not going overboard if I'm commissioning a league and I'm not adding 20 IR spots for
right.
I'm keeping it limited, but I think it's definitely an increase.
Definitely.
Now, I can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I mean, I'm just a guest, but I'm curious because, and I hadn't really thought of it till we started asking about the roster expansion. But last year we had some rules where it was, there was a certain amount of bench spots or IR spots, but then there were certain ones that were designated for COVID.
And
now, and now that may be a little less clear. I mean, we'll still have the COVID rule, but I just don't know exactly how it's going to play out. I just wonder if you think that you should have designated COVID slots versus regular IR slots, or just keep it neutral.
Honestly, I'd say neutral just because of the fact it's a lot for somebody to have to manage, to keep an eye on, and people trying to be slick. And there's a lot. I just say go more for just more flexibility. But,
yeah, I think last year I tried to do that in one of my leagues where I had just the COVID slots, and there wasn't really a setting for it. You almost had to monitor it as a commissioner to make sure your people were following the rules correctly, and it was kind of a pain to do. And I do think that as this becomes more and more of a normal thing, so to speak, we won't necessarily know all the time like what the diagnosis is. Do they have COVID? What are they out for? Those kind of things. So it would be even harder for us to track it. James, let me go to you on your thoughts on this rule change.
Yeah, I think it's interesting how Stephania talked about like the financial component of it, but also for me, I appreciate it as a fan and as a medical professional because the NFL historically has not really put player health first. And I think another aspect of having like a shortened IR, where I remember back when it used to be like a player went on IR, they were out for the year. Then they changed it. It was like designated to return, but it was after a certain amount of games and you could only do it once or something like that. So now I think there'll be less of a push to have players kind of rush back to the field because they can stick them on IR for 3 weeks and bring them back after that, give them time to heal, something more appropriate as opposed to, rub some dirt on it and get back out there and you're running on a high ankle sprain after 2 weeks and things like that. And typically that doesn't end well in the short term, medium term, or long term. So that's the thing that hits me about it. And so I'm actually kind of, just from a pure football fan perspective, I appreciate it. And I certainly get your point as far as adding the injury slots. And I know that a couple of friends of mine, just going from one injury IR slot to 2 was extreme. It was like exponential increase in like cumbersomeness. So yeah, whatever people end up doing in their leagues, I think, kind of finding that balance of making it fair for the players, but also not putting an undue burden on the commissioner, which, may be one of the most thankless jobs, in the known universe. And I'm sure anybody who commissions a league will agree with me.
Yep, I agree with that 100%. All right, so we do have a couple injuries that I wanted to talk on really quick. And obviously we have 2 doctors here, so what better way to start talking about injuries? But Rashad Bateman, obviously he went out with the groin. We're hearing now it's week to week. Stephania, I'm gonna go to you first on these soft tissue injuries and these receivers that, get these hammies. We tend to see them linger, sometimes throughout the entire year. Are you worried about that with Rashad Bateman?
Sure, because that's what the evidence suggests. The number one, what they call injury burden in the NFL, so it's time lost due to injury, is hamstring strains. And people think it must be ACLs or something dramatic like that, and it's not. And that's because if you look at days lost across personnel, the way they add up, the most come from hamstring injuries. We know that they can be nagging, they can take multiple weeks, and even then after a player comes back, they can go back out. Like Julio Jones, you saw last year, never really got better, had one that kind of up and down all year. We tend to see these soft tissue injuries happen around the second week of training camp. It's like clockwork, and here we are, we're right around the second week, and boom, 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 we're seeing them all over the place. It is fascinating to me because I've seen the data. I've watched it for several years now, and the NFL reports this. You could go look on their NFL, player health and safety website, and you can see some of these things in terms of like generally like numbers and such. But hamstring and soft tissue injuries really tend to spike in that early part of the preseason. And it is why they actually built in this acclimation period. If you look at that, was part of what was collectively bargained in terms of the preseason and not having as many padded practices. You had this delay until the padded practices began. Right. This was all part of the rationale for that. The thing that's difficult is guys come in from different training regimens. Some guys are working really hard in the off season. Some guys feel like it's more appropriate to rest. People come in maybe in different kinds of shape. And some people, unfortunately, they might be training really hard, but it might not be the right thing for what they're getting ready to do. I mean, you could go down. I don't want to spend the whole show on all the litany of variables that factor into why this happens, but it's part of why they put together this hamstring task force within the NFL Health and Safety Committee, because it's such an issue that they needed to dedicate resources to trying to figure it out. And when you're trying to attack it, you start thinking of all these different variables. And it's like, well, how do you chase one versus another, especially when the problem is probably multifactorial. It's probably a collection of all these things. You may have seen the NFL just gave a $4 million grant to a group in Wisconsin to actually study hamstring injuries. It is the holy grail right now of injury issues in the NFL. And I think this week just sort of proves it. And if you look at Baltimore, what's interesting to me, I did tweet this today. I said, soft tissue injuries are like the bane of the NFL team's existence because it's everybody. It's like, oh, here we go. If you look at Baltimore, their whole wide receiver core is dealing with soft tissue injuries, and their quarterback just came back from COVID. So I'm trying to figure out if they will have all of them on the field together at any point before the season starts. That's an issue.
Yeah, definitely an issue. And Ryan's up there just shaking his head because he's a Ravens fan. So.
Sorry,
I just feel like a drop kicked, like two-leg drop kicked in the gut right there.
You could just say, well, maybe they're getting it all out of the way right now. And then, by week 3, they're good and no more injuries.
I'm an optimist, but let's come on.
Now, I want to interject this real quick because this is a teachable thing. And Ryan, I really don't want to rain in your parade here, but this is when things get reported as day to day versus week to week. Like day to day doesn't really tell you anything. Like we're all day to day right now. However, when they say week to week, historically speaking, that generally means something bad. So I know with Rashad Bateman, they're waiting for the MRI. My suspicion is he's dealing with a partial tear of something. I don't know if it's a core muscle. I don't know if it's the groin. I don't know what's going on there. But I can, I have a really high suspicion he's going to miss the rest of the preseason. And I'm really getting worried that he's going to miss several weeks of the regular season as well at best. And, so this is not good. The week to week thing, that is a major red flag. Whenever you hear that, that's when, your spidey sense should start tingling.
Well,
so.
I mean, actually, John Harbaugh said a number of weeks. And here's what you don't know. The only problem with that in the preseason is that everybody gets gun shy now anyway. So if it were this season, might he come back a little bit sooner? Potentially. That could be problematic anyway, because if it's in the season and they're trying to come back, or they're trying to come back too quickly. But once they see this in the preseason, especially, we've just added another week to the season. I really think you're going to see teams be super conservative on bringing guys back from early soft tissue injuries.
For sure.
I hope they do. Like, take your time with him.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a rookie. Take your time. It's not like we're expecting lights out fantasy production right away from the fantasy aspect. But yeah.
Rashad can use the time to hit the book, study the playbook, figure out where everything is around town, and then come back hopefully super strong.
And as a team that run game can stomp the Raiders, it's fine.
Hey, be careful there.
One more quick injury I wanted to talk about, and it's more in relation to the other guy on the team. Hunter Henry set to miss a few weeks. Of course, they got 2 tight ends there. So does that, you think, open the door, James, for Jonnu Smith to sort of to be the next big thing there in New England?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And this is, one of these things where, I mean, it's the Patriots. So you already know out of the gate, you're not going to get anything as far as like useful data to kind of project things. But, they said it not believed to be serious, which is always, gives me some trepidation when I hear that. But I don't think they're going to rush him back. My concern with him is that it could be an AC joint sprain. And if it is, these things can be notoriously benign looking or not so bad looking on X-ray. And then when you look at the MRI, they can look a lot worse. You can see the damage to the cartilage and all those little ligaments and all the inflammation, and it really looks bad. It can be painful. They can linger. They can get worse. So he certainly could start slow and or miss a few games to start the year. So definitely a bump for Jonnu Smith, who I was already kind of pretty high on anyway, and this is just reinforcing that.
Yeah, Stephania, I saw you giving the thumbs up there when I mentioned Jonnu Smith. Are you high on Jonnu Smith this year?
I am. I mean, I think it's kind of interesting because we don't know exactly what they're going to do. But I remember once upon a time when the Patriots ran a lot of 2 tight end sets, and they were pretty darn good. Yeah. And, I think Hunter Henry will be back. I wouldn't be surprised if he's back by week 1. They have now Mike Reese saying that the MRI said the injury wasn't serious. And the Patriots don't reveal much when it comes to injury information. They're about
understatement of the millennium right there.
Yeah. But I will say that they also don't really fib. They might not say a lot, but they don't really fib. There are teams that will say, "Oh, it's not." I mean. I kind of think back to Joe Mixon last year, and that was, he was going to be back any day.
We're still waiting.
And how'd that work out? So in this case, I tend to think that's probably pretty fair. But I think Jonnu Smith, if I was picking who I was going to go for in fantasy, I think it's going to be Jonnu Smith, and I think he's going to be a big red zone target potentially for Cam. So I like him.
All right. Let's get to what we came here for. We got the NFC West and the AFC West division previews. We call this Everyone Hates Division Previews. We do it mock draft style. So we're going to do the NFC West. I have Stephania Bell here, who's a 49ers fan, just like myself. And then when we do the AFC West, we have a Raiders fan here in James. So we've got 2 experts of the divisions here. Let's go ahead and kick it off here with the 101 of the NFC West mock draft. And again, this is a SuperFlex PPR. And Stephania, you have the 101. So give me your 101 in this draft.
I do. Now, is this, I have to ask, because I'm sure I'm going to get hammered. Is this as if I were drafting for Dynasty?
No.
Or
redraft.
This is a redraft. Okay.
And it's not team building. It's just best player.
Just best player available. Yeah. This is our way of previewing the division without having to make it kind of boring. So.
Okay. Well, then I'm going to go with Patrick Mahomes.
Oh, we're doing NFC West first.
Oh, I thought we could mix and match.
Nope. Two separate ones.
You guys are changing the rules on me. Okay. I was stuck in an airplane a lot of today, so you have to be patient with me. Well, in that case, really? I don't want to go first now. I will take it's so unfair because you're going to make me pick a Seahawk and then I'm going to be so upset about it. Because I don't want any Rams, and Chris Carson.
Okay. All right, going with the running back, Chris Carson. All right, James, you got the 102.
So yeah, that's you like it when you're doing a draft and they throw you a curveball right out of the gate. So I wasn't expecting him to be on the board, but I'll take Kyler Murray. You love to have those Konami code quarterbacks. So SuperFlex league, that's it for me.
Oh God! See, I'm not paying attention to the rules.
You had a long flight, Stephania. We're not picking.
I know.
We're on your side.
Yeah, and this is pretty complicated. I had to send out a show sheet and a player pool sheet. I get it. There's a lot going on.
No, all right. I know who I'm going to be left with. It's mean. You guys are mean. But I get
Yeah.
2 picks. Do I get 2? Or we're doing reverse snake and I'm totally screwed.
All right, Ryan, you're up at the 103.
I was really
Can I
hoping
appeal my
Tyler,
pick?
but I've got Russell Wilson. I mean, he's as solid as can be in SuperFlex. I know what I'm gonna get. It's Russ, easy.
All right, Russell Wilson at the 103, and we're back to you at the 104, Stephania.
This is so mean. Like, I screwed myself is what I did. But I'll take, can I take 2 quarterbacks? No, I'll take Stafford.
Matthew Stafford. Yeah, I know what you want to do. You want to take both those 49ers quarterbacks to make sure you get the right one.
No, I wanted to take Stafford and Lance.
Oh, there you go. All right, the 105. Jim, you're up.
All right. Well, I know you 49er fans are going to be happy because I'm gonna take Trey Lance, and Trey Lance is my guy. We talked about him on the Dynasty Gambit a few times, and Gerson and I wouldn't say we got into it a little bit, but we had a conversation about it. And the thing I really like about him that has been underplayed is he plays with a chip on his shoulder. Like, he's been having people throughout his whole career tell him that he can't be successful, and he just keeps showing up and keeps, exceeding expectations. I think that that's just going to help him infinitely in the NFL, and I'm really excited to see what he can do. And if he lives up to even 75% of what his potential is, then he's going to be an amazing quarterback.
Yeah, I agree. I've been saying it all summer that I think he starts week 1. I know they're not saying it yet.
No, I don't.
Well, we got a scoop. We got the inside scoop.
No, I don't think that happens unless Jimmy G gets hurt in camp. I'm not going to believe it. I do think. I mean, I just spent 2 days with the Niners, and I think there will be packages. Kyle Shanahan's already said it. I mean, I watched practice. I saw some of the plays that they have designed for him in the red zone. 49ers are terrible in red zone offense. They have struggled there. Even when they were going to the Super Bowl, they still struggled with the red zone offense. And that is where I think they're going to use Trey Lance, and he's going to have some sort of fantasy value immediately, but it'll be limited. But I think what will happen is that, he looks fantastic. Like, the kid is good, but he's raw. There are a couple struggles. And I think that unless a lot changes in the next couple of weeks, I don't think he's going to start week 1. Because remember this, if he does and he struggles, then what do you do?
Then what do you do?
Exactly. Then what do you do? Because then you got a kid who's struggling for a 17-week season, and you go back to, you've sort of disrupted that. So I don't see it week 1. I do see it eventually.
All right, fair enough. Ryan, we're at the 106.
I'm between 2 guys. I'm kind of going to play off of you two and what you specialize in. So I'm going to go with the one who's probably not going to last with DK Metcalf. He's a stud. He has that potential to be the one wide receiver 1 if he gets the volume. And he's a big play waiting to happen. Love DK there.
Yeah, I've always loved DK. I hate when we have to play against him because he seems to always kill the 49ers. But DK is definitely a good pick there. At the 107, Stephania, who you got?
Give me George Kittle.
George Kittle, great pick.
I thought he was going to fall because of the injuries.
Nope.
I literally.
He's not hurt right now. No, he's not hurt. And if those are my 3 tight end choice, yeah,
that's fair.
It's not even close.
Yeah, I was hoping maybe the injury thing would push him down for you guys, but if you said he's healthy, that makes me feel really good in reality.
He is. I think with George Kittle, the hardest thing is his style of play is part of what makes him so great. Is what makes him a risk. But I think he learned some of that last year, and it's really interesting to watch. And if you talk to him, I think he will make some business decisions.
Yeah. I love George Kittle. I made a trade for him in one of my main dynasty leagues this year. I'm excited to see what he can do. All right, we are at the 108, James, and you are up.
All right. Well, if Kittle got pushed down, he was only getting pushed down one spot because if you didn't take him, Stephania, I was taking him. But I am going to go with Nook Hopkins from Arizona. And I'm going to match him up with Kyler Murray. And I know we're not playing for the same team, but same principle. He's the alpha dog out there. I know they got some other guys. I'm really looking forward to that offense taking another step forward this year. And he's just been doing it. He's been doing it for a long time with quarterbacks that had fractions of the talent that Kyler Murray has. And now he's really got a chance to shine out there. So I'm really looking forward to hoping that it all comes together for the Arizona Cardinals this year.
Good stuff. Yeah, I think I got Hopkins currently as my number one receiver in redraft. I think he's going to have a monster season. Ryan, we are up to you with the 109.
I'm going to Darrell Henderson here. I think he's going to pick up a nice bit. I don't think he's going to do what we all expect Cam Akers to do, but he's really good in the passing game. And we've seen Matt Stafford have a running back with over 50 receptions for the past 6 years. And a lot of them haven't been that talented. So I'm going to bet on him, his explosive ability, and having a factor in the receiving game. He doesn't need 200 carries like everybody wants him to be very fantasy relevant.
I like it. Stephania, you're at the 110.
Give me Trey Sermon.
Trey Sermon. Now, I've been saying that he might be our starter this year. What are your thoughts on Trey Sermon there being a starter?
Yeah, I think he could be. I think it's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out. Everybody's kind of watching what happens in San Francisco. How does Raheem Mostert respond to him? I mean, now it's all collegial, everybody, helping everybody out at the position, all that. But they like what they're seeing. I mean, it's interesting because, Wayne Gallman is there too now with the 49ers. And one of the things that he spoke when I was there, and he was talking about playing for Bobby Turner. So first of all, if Bobby Turner likes you, then I'm on board because I have much respect for him when it comes to running backs and scouting. But one of the things that Wayne Gallman said is some places you could play and just really know the details about your position, and some places they expect you to know the details about the whole offense so you can be ready to do anything. And that's a big Bobby Turner thing. So I think the opportunity for Trey Sermon to grow is there, and they like him a lot. So I think you could be right.
Good stuff. And our friend of the show, Gerson, he's a big Trey Sermon fan. He had a huge
Trey Sermon fan.
All right, 111, James.
All right, let's keep hammering wide receiver here. Let's go with Cooper Kupp. I figured I got my choice of the two guys in Los Angeles. I would have been happy with Kupp or Woods, but I'm going to take Kupp here. Just figured he's got a little bit more upside in that offense, and with getting Stafford in there, which I may be the last living Jared Goff non-hater. I think he's been scapegoated a little bit, but that's a story for a different time. But now that Stafford's in there, really excited to see that offense kind of go to another level, and I think he'll be a big beneficiary of that.
Good stuff. Ryan, you got the 112 and the 201 back to back.
Oh, very nice. That means I can just pick both guys I was debating between. I'm going to go Bobby Woods and then Tyler Lockett. They're both fantastic. They're both going to be a top 24 receiver in completely different ways. Woods is going to get consistently and give you a nice floor where Locke is that boomer bust and can win you any week. And if I'm team building, I like having guys like that together anyway. So it worked out.
All right. And then back to you, Jim, for the 202.
Okay. So let's see. I'm going to go with Brandon Ayuk for your 49ers. I don't know. There's something about him. I really like what he brings to that offense, and I am not on the whole Deebo Samuel thing. You talk about soft tissue injuries. We talked about it for a long time at the beginning of the show. If you look up soft tissue injuries in the medical dictionary, it's getting to the point where Deebo Samuel's picture may be there at some point. So if he's out of the equation, I think Ayuk's upside's even higher.
All right. Stephania, you're up at the 203.
Yeah, we're not out of the equation yet, so I'm going to take Deebo. But
Listen, I like the optimism.
I look. Brandon Ayuk is, he has the potential to. I think he has the potential to be the number one this year. He's a phenomenal kid. I actually talked to him for a while when I was there, and he came into the league running a pretty complete route tree, which was impressive because there's not a lot of college wide receivers who do that, So he was able to actually go from there, and I think he's progressed pretty quickly for the 49ers. That being said, Deebo Samuel can do it all. I mean, he can run the ball. He's a playmaker. He was a playmaker at South Carolina. He just kept getting hurt. So I'm going to hope that the 49ers can't really have it all that bad again this year, can they? So I'm going to take Deebo.
All right, Ryan, you are up at the 204, and this is where things start to get a little bit ugly. Where are you going here at the 204?
They do, but I still like Chase Edmonds. Again, another running back with receiving upside on a team that's going to pass the ball a ton. And I think they're going to use that passing game, screen game to the running backs as an extension of the run game more than actually running it. So they're going to try I think he'll have more of an opportunity to get the ball in space than James Conner. So I like that, especially PPR.
Yeah, okay. All right. I like Chase Edmonds as well. All right, James, you're up at the 205.
All right. Well, we're going to go back to LA, and we're going to take a tight end this time. So I'm going to go with Tyler Higbee. And kind of the same thing that I talked about with Cooper Kupp. Higbee's the beneficiary of that as well. And he has less competition this year. So, I really like his chances to be potentially a top 10 tight end.
Yeah, we all had high hopes for him last year, and he didn't really produce the way we had hoped to. But now that Gerald Everett's out of the way, Matthew Stafford's in there, maybe the offense is a little bit better. Maybe Higbee can sort of make a little bit of a rebound there. I like it. 206, Stephania.
Oh, feels weird. I feel like even more of a homer than usual. But because pretty much that's, they do have a lot of offensive talent, those 49ers. I'm going to go with Raheem Mostert.
Yeah, I like Raheem Mostert. As long as he can stay healthy, he's a big play guy. I mean, I think he's –
You realize that every time I pick a Niner, you say that.
If the shoe fits,
That's right. And I understand it. I just want to point it out.
All right, good stuff. Let's see where we're at. We're at the 207, Ryan.
Speaking of staying healthy, if he can kind of defy age and health, AJ Green still has talent. Yeah. And in a high caliber offense, you can take him late and cross the fingers.
Yeah, definitely. He can. If he can stay healthy, that's the big key. That's definitely the big key for him.
You made yourself say it for somebody who is not a 49er. I actually like AJ Green this year. I think he's totally undervalued. He would have been my next pick.
He's a nice pick there, too.
208, Jim.
So I don't want to feel left out here. So let me say it too. As long as he stays healthy, James Conner, running back for Arizona. What I really like about him is, he has the advantage of being, behind a better offensive line, which admittedly the bar is set really low for that from where he came from. With a better offense, he does have some competition there, but he can run, he can catch. And the difference this year as opposed to last year is he doesn't cost you as high of a draft pick as he did last year. So you can wait on him, and his risk of injury is kind of baked into his price. And he still has, some significant upside. And, if one of Conner or Edmonds gets hurt, then I think you got a borderline RB1 on your roster for fantasy purposes.
Yep. Good stuff. All right, we are up at the 209, and let me just give a recap of what's on the board still. We still got Jimmy Garoppolo on the board. We got the two running backs from Seattle with Rashad Penny and DJ Dallas is still there. We got the two backup running backs for the Rams, Xavier Jones and Jake Funk is there. Van Jefferson, Tutu Atwell, and Gerald Everett are a few of the top names there. So, Stephania, you're up at the 209.
I will take Christian Kirk.
Christian Kirk, good pick. I actually missed him on list here.
Like that.
You think he finally takes that step forward this year that we've been hoping for the past couple of years?
I don't know. I feel like they got so many guys that it's like I think DeAndre Hopkins is far and away the number one, and I would say probably Kirk is he's got it. I don't know. I don't even really know what to say other than by now he deserves a little more attention.
Yeah.
But it's really tough for me, and that's why it's one of those things where I think I like the Arizona offense as a collective more than I really like most of their individual players.
Yeah. They're a little bit like the 49ers in that sense, where I think there's a lot of really good players in the 49ers that sort of cannibalize each other to the point you don't know who's going to be the one that's the top guy there. 210, Ryan.
I do want to say this is much easier than last week's teams.
Oh man, I was funny about that. Wasn't that rough? They had to do, what was it, the AFC and NFC South?
Oh my God,
those guys were hurting. They were in pain. You could feel their pain.
Yeah,
as they were making their picks in like the end of the first round. It was fantastic.
AFC East was painful too. I'm going with Gerald Everett. I'm a sucker for Gerald Everett. The athletic build. He's 88 percentile speed, 93% burst score. He's a freak athlete. He's been in this offense with a lot of talent everywhere, and there's still a lot here, but he gives them a nice red zone threat up the middle. And Ross has shown that he can have a tight end score some touchdowns.
Yeah. We had Jimmy Graham a few years ago. I think he had led the league in touchdowns that year. All right, James, we're up at the 211.
So this is the last pick is when you want to start taking swings for the fences, right? So I'm going to go with a guy that I was really high on pre-draft. He did not get a lot of draft capital, which was kind of disappointing, but was somebody that I really was excited about. I'm going to take Elijah Mitchell, and I'm going to bank that something else happens with all the other 49ers running backs, and he finds a way to get himself on the field and contribute. Wondering if draft capital matters as much as it did maybe in years past this year because of COVID, because of other things. So gonna take a big swig on him, and if it comes up empty, I'm okay with that. But he's my guy.
211, yeah, I love Mitchell. I've been pumping him up all off season. I loved him going into the season. Unfortunately, he's gonna be behind Trey Sermon, but I do think there can be a nice 1-2 punch there eventually. All right, Stephania, you're up with the final pick of the NFC West at 212.
I'm gonna take Jimmy Garoppolo.
Nice.
Because I still think he's gonna start, so I don't think I'm getting 0 points. Who knows? Could prove me wrong, but since we're not playing out this league, I'm just gonna play on faith.
Yeah, I mean,
we have in 48. It's the reason we're called the faithful.
Yep, there is a scenario in which he plays really well, and then they don't go to Trey Lance if he continues to win.
Correct. I mean, or like I said, Trey Lance will play, but it could be interesting if they're both on the field. Then my team would look pretty good.
Yeah, there you go. All right.
Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford looks really good, by the way.
That's not surprising.
Just saw him. Yeah. I mean, it's not, but he looks like lean and fit. Like, I mean, the guy banged his thumb, and there was a thought that he was going to miss a couple days practice. No,
right back in there.
Yeah, and I was down at the Rams Cowboys, and he looked great.
Nice.
Good to hear.
Good to hear. Yeah, definitely. I'm high on Stafford in redraft this year. I think he's going to be one of those quarterbacks that slip to the late rounds that you can get, and definitely capitalize on his draft. All right. We are going to roll right into the AFC West here because we are running a little long. So the AFC West, this is your division, James. So you get the 101 in this division. Again, it's SuperFlex PPR. So I have a feeling I know who your first pick is going to be.
Yeah. So Stephania kind of tipped her hand on who she would take, and no surprise that's where I'm going. So no need to embellish that pick at all. I'm going to take Patrick Mahomes, and I'm not going to think twice about it. And whoever is 102 is up.
All right, yeah, 102 is Stephania.
I mean, it's brutal, right? If I hadn't given you that, you probably wouldn't.
You're right.
You wouldn't have noticed it. I mean,
it's like back in the day when somebody saw your draft
So
sheet,
unfair.
it's like you're covering it up like it's the SATs.
Okay, I have no idea what's going on and why he hasn't been in practice, but I'm going to assume it's no big deal. I'm taking Darren Waller.
Ooh, nice.
Okay.
Nice. Ryan, you got the 103.
I'm shocked. I didn't expect the decision I want to make now. I'll be on Justin Herbert. He has that potential to be a top 5 quarterback. I mean, I'm struggling to get there because it's stacked, but he has that kind of potential.
Yeah, especially from what we saw last year. If he continues on that pace, I mean, the kid's he's pretty awesome. All right, we're back to you, Jim, at the 104.
Oh man, as a Raiders fan, this really like hurts my soul that I'm going to Kansas City so much, but I have to. I got to take Travis Kelce, the lead pipe #1 tight end in the land for the better part of the last half decade. I mean, he's just amazing. I can't get away from that. I got to take him.
Yeah, definitely. He gives you that positional advantage there with, I mean, this division, I mean, Darren Waller and Travis Kelce, and then you got it's a pretty good division for tight ends.
There's some thought that Darren Waller could overtake Travis Kelce this year, so I'm just rolling my dice there because I feel
I like it.
You know,
There's a lot of targets.
living dangerously.
Yeah,
I like it. I like living dangerously.
All right, Stephania, you're up at the 205.
Well, now I'm going to take my guy in my dynasty league, Justin Herbert.
I think Ryan took him already.
Oh,
Sorry.
I already pulled one of those. Like that is the worst party foul ever. And here I thought I was like, oh, he's not. Nobody's even noticing. Okay, well, fine. I'll just stack my team with no. Hold on. I do not want to take my quarterback yet. Then, well, maybe I do. Maybe I do. Maybe I don't. Well, now I'm stuck. Let's see. I thought I was so clever. I'm choking.
Tyreek Hill, Clyde Edwards.
I know. I mean, that Tyreek Hill is where I'm going.
All right, Tyreek off the board. And Stephania, I don't know if you noticed, but I sent a player pool in the chat there, the Twitter chat, and I'm crossing the players off as we go along. I don't know if you saw that player pool in there or not.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I did once upon a time, but I'm not following it right now. So, yeah.
No biggie.
Yeah,
all right. Let's see. That was what
someone.
That was
I couldn't function going off memory. How am I?
Yeah.
Oh, look at now I can see that you've edited it. Yeah, look at that. Had I been looking at that live, I would have been a better guest on your show. How embarrassing.
All good. Where are we at? We're at the 206 now.
Did I mention I was stuck on planes all day?
We think you're a fantastic guest no matter what. This does not make you not a fantastic guest. I just want to put that out there.
I'm the worst. Okay.
100% agree with you, James. All right, 206, Ryan.
I'm going CEH. I think that improved offensive line, adding them ballers up there. The defense will improve more, so they could lead to some more running, him being involved in the passing game. I like CH this year.
I do too. I actually traded for him in my main dynasty league too, and I'm excited about what he can do this year in that offense. All right, we are at the 207, right? 207, Jim, you're up.
Yeah, I'm gonna go get my guy Austin Eckler from the LA Chargers, and he's one of those guys. I love the running backs, especially in fantasy, where you have multiple pathways to getting points and value. And he can run, he can catch. We know he can do all that, and he's very versatile. I know he had some injury stuff last year, but he's a young guy. If he ends up being healthy and it can stay on the field, then I'm really looking forward to him really having like RB1 upside this year. And if he can just push over a few more touchdowns, oh man, like he can go into the stratosphere. So that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, I mean these two divisions are some great divisions to do because there's some real talent in these divisions. I mean, you're talking like top 5, top 8 talent in both the NFC West and the AFC West. And Eckler is definitely one of those guys that could potentially be a top 5 running back. All right, We are at I keep losing my spot here. We're at the 208, Stephania. I'm sorry, the 108. 108.
Yeah, I loved Austin Eckler James. Thanks a lot. But I'll take Josh Jacobs.
Any worry with Kenyon Drake being there? Just curious.
Not really. I don't really know I think it's insurance more than anything. I mean, Josh Jacobs has been, it's I don't really get the hate on Josh Jacobs. I think,
yeah, I'm with you on that all the way.
I don't quite understand why it's so severe. I mean, the kid is good. And I think, everybody harps on players who don't play through stuff that aren't tough. And guys who come out of Alabama tend to be pretty tough, right? Because they're on the field all the time. They play through a lot, and they play longer seasons than everybody else in college football. And he, in that first year with the Raiders, he had a brutal injury, and he was crying, tearful when they told him they were taking the pads away. Like, that's the kind of player he is. So I don't see it. I think that they got nervous based on what they had behind him last year when he struggled. And all running backs, I pretty much build into everyone's value that I expect them to miss a couple games. Like, it's running back, it's running back. You're just hoping that you don't end up with a McCaffrey off season, a guy who, by the way, never missed a game ever until last year, high school, college, or pro. So now all of a sudden people are like, ooh, I don't know if you saw that article. I digress, but there was that article on ESPN.com. Jeremy Fowler put together all the scouts and everybody, how they rated them. And the guys who were like, ranked Christian McCaffrey like 5th. And I'm like, what? You're telling me you wouldn't want this guy on your club, all because of one fluky season. I don't buy it. Anyway, I spent too much time on that, but I think the hate has gone too far on Josh Jacobs, and I'm still in on him.
Yeah, recency bias is a killer. That's definitely something in fantasy football we all got to be aware of. Our own biases, our own recency bias. Like, that's number one for me.
Yeah, I know that makes Ryan happy because he's been saying that pretty much all summer about Josh Jacobs and the hate squad.
It made me feel good because I didn't want to have to take him and talk about him again. It made me feel good. Thank you.
That's what I'm here for.
You're up at the 209.
I'm going between a guy who I should take and who I want to take. I'm going to go with the safer one. I'm going Keenan Allen. I mean, he's consistent as can be. He's a lock for wide receiver 11 through 16. Like, I'm just throwing him in, forgetting about him. Love him.
Yep. I love Keenan Allen. He's going to be a target monster yet again this year. Jim, we're up at the 110.
All right. I'm kind of juggling between the two Denver guys. So I'm gonna do the opposite of what Ryan did. There's the safer play, and then there's the kind of go with your gut. So I'm gonna take a little bit more of a risk. I'm gonna go with Cortland Sutton, who I think has got a little bit higher upside if everything all breaks right. Obviously, he's coming off the ACL, so that's a concern. But I'm not really that concerned about it, to be honest with you. I think he's back out there. He's doing his thing. He's had, I think it's been 10 or 11 months or something like that. So, we'll see. But so far, so good. And that works for me.
All right, good stuff. 111, Stephania.
Yeah, I guess I'll get my quarterback now to go with the rest of my team. I'll take Derek Carr. He hasn't been taken yet, right?
No.
I didn't screw that up.
No.
I'm just kidding.
All right,
I
Derek
just didn't
Carr.
want you guys to leave me with like a backup or Drew Lock.
Or Drew Lock. All right, Ryan, you got the back-to-back 212 and the 201. I mean, the 112 and the 201.
Awesome. So I got my guy, one of Jerry Jeudy. That's who I was debating between. He's so skilled at getting open and route running. The drops were a blip last year. I don't care. The quarterback situation can't be much worse. And, oh, my God, if somehow Teddy Bridgewater gets in there, just combine the two quarterbacks, I think he's going to be peppered with targets. So I love Jerry Jeudy. And I have his right around my wide receiver 24 now. And I think he has a ton of upside.
Good stuff. And the 201?
In the 201, I got too excited about Jerry Jeudy. I forgot. I'm going to go again, upside with Javonte Williams. I know Melvin Gordon's probably going to get a lot of burn early and often, but I think down the stretch of that playoff run, they're going to ride the young buck who can do a little bit of everything. So I love Javonte Williams there.
I think Stephania may have gotten sniped. You're up at the
I did. I love Javonte Williams.
So good.
So you got the 202, Stephania. Who you got?
Well, I'm going to go back to the tight end pool and take Noah Fant.
I love Noah Fant this year. I think no matter who his quarterback is, I think it's going to be a very good tight end. All right, Jim, 203.
Let's go back to the LA Chargers and go with Mike Williams. Really like what he could do in this offense, especially if they're talking about he's going to be the X receiver there. He's got a really good quarterback throwing him the ball. He's a nice compliment to Keenan Allen. So I'll get my LA Chargers guy. Not the one I wanted, but I'll get the one, maybe the one I deserve.
204, Ryan.
I'm going with the so-called mixture of Terrell Owens and Randy Moss here and Brian Edwards. But for real, I think he brings something that they don't have on that team, that big body throw on the outside, which they had Tyrell Williams before, but a little bit more talented. I think he can give them some nice volume there.
All right. 205, Stephania.
I'm going to go with Mecole Hardman.
Nice pick.
Yeah, I like.
You sniped me, Stephania.
Oh, finally. One in this round.
Well, I guess it's only fair after I sniped Mahomes from you.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was rude.
I like Mecole Hardman this year quite a bit.
All right, 206, Jim.
Well, since none of you guys are showing my man Melvin Gordon any respect, I'm going to show him some respect. He's still there. He hasn't evaporated. He hasn't been taken in the rapture. I love Javonte Williams too, but I think he still has a role in the offense, and I think he is not going to go away so easily.
They say so.
Yeah, but I don't think he's going to go away so quietly. So I'm gonna bank on that, and he'll be my guy.
All right, 207, Ryan.
It dropped. I felt like it really dropped off after him. Oh gosh, I'm going to pick Jared Cook. We've seen the tight end be a big part of the Chargers offense, and he's at the position now. He might be their third or fourth option, but he might be their second in the red zone. So I'm going to go Cook and pray for touchdowns.
All right. And yes, we definitely hit a cliff here. 208, Stephania. There's not a whole lot left on the board.
I know. What am I going to do? I mean, last year I was really high on Henry Ruggs, and I just didn't understand exactly what happened there. But so, the ceiling has come down a little bit, but he's still there, and it's his second year. And I think that, there's still value and use for him. So I'm going to take Henry Ruggs.
Yeah, that would have been my pick there, too. I think he's the last one on the board that I think has the upside to be a top fantasy asset. All right, and we are at the 209, Jim.
All right. Well, let's I think is this my first Raider? I think it might be. So let's take Kenyon Drake. And I think he is, Gruden likes to run these multi-back sets and things like that. I think there's a role for both Jacobs and Kenyon Drake to have a role in the offense at the same time and both be productive at the same time. And obviously, if something were to happen to Josh Jacobs, then you've got a starting running back. So I'll take Drake.
All right, and Ryan, 210 in your final pick.
I'm done playing Broncos quarterback chicken. I'm gonna take Drew Lock. I think they're going to give him every chance he can to either succeed or fail. So I'll take the chance he has nice weapons and possibly could succeed. Plus, he has a little rushing upside.
All right. And 211, Stephania.
I'm probably going to go with KJ Hamler. Take a chance. Maybe he gets pick. Yeah. I mean, they apparently thought something of him, so why not?
KJ Hamler off the board. And Jim, bring us home with the 212.
All right. Well, yeah, I like how me and Ryan are kind of diametrically opposed on some of these things. It makes it interesting. So I'm gonna play quarterback chicken. I'll take Teddy Bridgewater, and one of us is going to be right. They did bring him in for a reason. I know that they almost brought in Aaron Rodgers, so I don't really look too harshly on that. But they thought something of the guy, otherwise they wouldn't have brought him in. So we'll take a chance and see if he can make something happen. I'm not expecting him to be a world beater, but if he can be league average and productive, I can live with that.
Awesome. That wraps up the mock draft. So before I go to our next segment, I wanted to make sure that Stephania actually had one because she's been on a plane. But we're doing the forgotten fantasy players, Stephania. Were you able to get this? All
so
right,
I'm not sure I understood like the rules of the game, but it's just supposed to be somebody that I used to love in fantasy once upon a time.
Yep, that's exactly right. It could be
Exactly.
a stretch of games, that 3 games or whatever. It could be anything, however you want to define it.
Near and dear to your heart.
Oh, so am I going first?
We'll let James go first, and then we'll let you
Okay.
go. James, go ahead and give us your forgotten fantasy player.
Absolutely. So I'm excited for this one. So I'm probably definitely dating myself with this one, but all of my friends from my very first fantasy football league are going to remember my infatuation with this guy. Drafted out of the University of Florida way back in 1998 with the 9th pick by the Jacksonville Jaguars. Fred Taylor started 12 games as a rookie, rushed for 1,223, 14 touchdowns, caught 44 passes for 421 yards and 3 additional scores. And well, I was in love. I took him with my first round pick the next year in 99. He missed 6 games with a hamstring injury, ended up with just over 800 yards from scrimmage and 6 total TDs, but I wasn't deterred. I took him again in the first round in 2000, and he rewarded my loyalty with just under 1,400 yards rushing, 36 catches for 240 yards and 14 total TDs. Now, I took him again the following year when he suffered a complete tear of his groin in week 2 and was done for the year. So he ended up missing 23 of his 48 games from 99 to 2001. And this was the beginning of the narrative of him being injury prone, earning him the nicknames Fragile Fred and Fraud Taylor. But I'm here to set the record straight. I'm my boy, Fred Taylor, not Fraud Taylor, Fred Taylor. And just to show how unfair that stigma was, over the next 6 years, from 2002 to 2007, he averaged over 1,000 yards, almost 30 catches a year for almost 250 yards, and over 5 TDs. Now, is that going to win you your league? No. But that's some solid production, especially considering this guy that you might have heard of showed up in town towards the tail end of his career, Maurice Jones-Drew, who ended up becoming a fantasy demigod. So that's my guy, Fred Taylor, not Fragile Fred, not Fraud Taylor. And Fred, if you're watching, I still love you, man. You'll always be my fantasy football first-round pick.
Only 200-yard game I've seen in person was Fred Taylor. Love Fred Taylor.
He was, oh, man, I love that guy.
Yep, he was awesome. He was awesome. All right, Stephania, who is your forgotten fantasy player?
That was a total dude crush if I ever heard one.
Big time. Oh, man. All the guys in my league, they're like, oh, I wonder who you're picking in the first round again. I was like, well, wonder no more. It's Fred Taylor.
Well, how dare you say you date yourself, because I'm going to go further back. But I was thinking about this today when I was flying, because, I might have mentioned I was flying all day. Priest Holmes was one of my first fantasy studs. I love that guy. And I loved his story. Somebody was asking me on a different show I was doing where it's like, why are you always so positive? Like, you seem to like the underdog stories. You seem to like the comeback story. I'm like, probably because I'm a PT. It's sort of what we do all the time. But Priest Holmes was undrafted out of college and, goes to Baltimore and does okay. And they get a Super Bowl ring. And then he goes to Kansas City and just totally makes a name for himself. I mean, he was a free agent and signed with Kansas City and ended up having incredible success there. And he was the running back to watch. And I just loved his style of play. I loved that he was like this physical running back who could handle everything. And he played, that's when I really kind of fell in love with the Chiefs for a while there. And, then I ended up, I was there in Kansas City for 5 years, but, I love Priest Holmes. I thought he was awesome. I always felt bad that his career kind of ended after he had that neck injury, and then it was never really the same. And I just felt like it sucked. I think he had a hip injury too, if I recall.
He did, yeah.
I have this weird Rolodex for injury recall. But,
you and me both.
But I just felt like it was an unfair way out for him. But everything he accomplished, considering nobody would draft him coming out of Texas. I love that guy. Was one of my favorite to watch ever.
I love that. I love that pick.
Yeah, that was one of my picks. I had Priest Holmes on some of my fantasy teams back then, and back then we didn't have like the Roto Worlds and all the news. So I had literally every team page tabbed on my computer, and I would check it, the camp notes every week. And Priest Holmes, when he was in Baltimore, kind of came up through the ranks, and they kept talking about him. So I drafted him that year that he broke out in Baltimore.
Yeah,
and knew who he was. So he was kind of my little claim to fame there. Like, I knew who he was before anybody else did. Kind of.
You discovered him. You discovered Priest Holmes.
He was so solid. So solid.
Yep, definitely. All right, that wraps the podcast up. We're going to go around the room really quick. Give us your Twitter handle one more time. And if you want to plug anything, Jim, we'll go to you first.
All right, awesome. Well, you can find me on here at Going for Two Live, Dynasty Gambit that we're doing in the offseason, and then transitioning to the Monday night show where we'll be talking injuries with Kyle Senra, Dan Rosia, and Gladys Louise Tyler. You can find me on Twitter at TFSDoc. And I'll finish the plug for my book now. I'm sure everyone here will agree that injuries are really important in fantasy sports, especially fantasy football, no matter your format. So I wrote this book, Injuries Suck, but Your Fantasy Team Doesn't Have to. And I talk about
great title.
Thank you. I talk about specific terminology, injury timetables, how to read between the lines of player and coach speak in major media reports. I also show you how to approach injuries pre-draft and in season, including a step-by-step description of how to create your own fantasy injury calculator to evaluate injured players so you can draft them or not and know exactly what you're getting. Draft strategies, game theory, lots of other fun stuff crammed into about 100 pages. It's available on Amazon, paperback and e-version. It's got a 4.9 aggregate review score. There's a link on my Twitter page, so please check it out before draft season is over. You won't regret it. I guarantee it. And again, thank you guys for having me here. Stephania, it was a pleasure to be on here with you and to meet you in person virtually. I'm glad you arrived safely and you were able to do this. This really was an honor and a thrill for me. So thank you for that.
Definitely. Thanks for coming on. And Stephania, give us a little rundown of what you might be coming up. You said you're touring camps and such. Anything you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, I'm on the end of my whirlwind tour. I will be with the Colts tomorrow, Colts and Panthers practicing together. So this is a good way to wrap it up. There's been a couple things going on with the Colts. Don't know if you guys have noticed. Even when I booked it, I didn't know that I was stepping into, like, this was perfect timing to show up here and to be able to watch Christian McCaffrey myself after not seeing him for so long. So wrapping up my camp tour with this visit next week. On Monday's podcast, I believe, our Fantasy Focus podcast, which is available on all platforms. We do it live on Twitter, the ESPN app, our Facebook page, and then also audio downloads, Apple or wherever you get your podcast. But on Monday, I'll be doing a big wrap of all my camp tours, a lot of nuggets that I picked up. Couple which I shared with you tonight, but a lot of them all wrapped up into that show. And then we do our fantasy marathon. We do it every year. The formats have been a little bit different just recently with the COVID protocols and everything, but we have 2 days of this jam-packed fantasy across all of our platforms on ESPN. But we will do, in particular, our podcast that we do, but on Tuesday evening from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern, on ESPN. They're actually giving us time on the mothership. Nice. We will be having a 2-hour Fantasy Football Now season preview with me, Field Yates, Matthew Berry. I believe Adam Schefter and Damian Woody will be there. So huge fantasy football preview show as part of the Fantasy Marathon. So I hope you guys will check out Monday and Tuesday. You'll get a lot of stuff from us. I'm at Stephania _ESPN. I had to think about it for a second on Twitter and at Stephania Bell on Instagram. And it's daily from here on out.
Good
here
stuff.
We go.
Love it.
Yep, strap in.
And thank you, James. It was really nice meeting you too. You're too kind in what you're saying, but it was it's really, I geek out when I get to talk injury stuff with other people who like get it.
Oh yeah, for sure. Me too. So we're definitely aligned there. Absolutely.
And thank you guys for inviting me on your show. I really appreciate it. You guys are great sports. You put up with my scatterbrain, not only today, but just in sort of this time of year. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Ryan, what you got going on?
Obviously, find me here every Wednesday on the Armchair Fantasy Show and go2.com. Then find me over at the Sports Illustrated Draft Bible. We're doing our our division projections now. We're getting our projections for all the players and the whys for it. So working on that and then hopping into the season. So find me on Twitter at BossBot34.
All right, great stuff, guys. Of course, you can follow me on Twitter at JeffLambert77. For James, for Stephania, for Ryan, I'm Jeff. We will see y'all next week.